One of the saddest, very short, pithy sentence in Scripture goes like this: "And it was night." It was night when Judas chose to betray the Lord and made good his threat and his act and went out into the darkness. It was night. One of the most depressing books I've read, and I'm reading now the original French, is the book by Elie Wiesel, La Nuit. In English, it was just translated as Night. It talks about his experience of darkness in the cruel concentration camps. I don't know whether it was Buchenwald or Dachau or Auschwitz. It was night. We're talking about darkness in our three readings today. In the first reading from the Book of Wisdom, there was an allusion to the darkness when they were about to run away from slavery in Egypt. But let me go back to that a bit later on. In the second reading, we talked about a different form of darkness, the darkness of advanced age, the darkness of incapacity. Abraham and Sarah were not expected to have a child. What worse form of darkness do you have? When you're expecting a child and you cannot bear a child because nature dictates it otherwise. We have the darkness of sickness, and my heart reaches out to those who are all of a sudden, they're healthy all their lives. They run several kilometers a day. And then one morning they wake up to find out that their blood sugar has shot up through the roof and pierced the ceiling. Darkness. But I remember a viral photo that became a sensation all over the world a few years ago. It was this picture of a boy using the light of a Meralco post to study and prepare for his lessons the following day. It was dark in their home because Meralco cut off their lines. They couldn't pay their dues. Darkness led him to the light. Darkness led him to active hope. Darkness did not overcome him. Oh no, he did something to overcome the darkness. And now I go back to the first reading. When the Jews, the Israelites, ran away from slavery from Egypt, it was dark. But they had their loins girt, their lamps on. They were wearing their sandals. They had their walking sticks. They were active in the dark. I told you the story of that young man who one night was seen to be looking for something. And he was looking for something right below the light post of a Meralco post. And his friend asked him, "Are you looking for something?" "Yes." "And what is it?" "Something very important for me. It has sentimental value. I lost it." "Whereabout did you lose it?" "Where did you lose it?" "Oh, it's back in the other street. So why are you looking for it here?" And his answer makes a little sense, because there is more light here. We tend to run away from darkness. Darkness is our nemesis. Darkness is our downfall. When your eyesight is no longer good, then it's hard to follow. I can't even sometimes read my own handwriting. Darkness is our nemesis, and then the lights are not good, and I am not helped any by these two big lights right in front of me. I don't see your eyes. And having been a teacher for 45 years now, I need to see my students' eyes. I need to know where their heart is. Because they may be physically present, but they are actually in TikTok, in their gadget, hidden somewhere under the desk. That viral photo of the boy using the light of a Meralco post to conquer the darkness of ignorance is something that has to do with the readings today. And the gospel talks about precisely this: gird your loins and light your lamps. But when we reflect on the types of darkness that we have in our times, then the darkness of what this very, very brilliant Russian who has a PhD in political science. He ran away from Russia 30 years ago, prior to the fall of Russia, and then did his doctorate in the United Kingdom. And now he is telling me, and I believe him, because as a pastoral counselor, I'm very familiar with what he speaks about. He said that the big darkness in Russia right now is the darkness of the depoliticization of the Russian people. They don't care anymore. They don't care whether they're ruled by a despot who wants to conquer every country that used to belong to the Union of Soviet republics of yore. He doesn't declare war against Ukraine, because how do you declare war against a country you don't even recognize? How do you declare war against a place that you look down on? They're just little bears, and the big bear is Russia. And Belarus is a bigger bear than Kiev, Rus. The Kiev, where the Slavic culture was nestled once upon a time. How do you wage war against a people you don't even respect? You don't even call them by name. They have no right to be Ukrainians. They are just Russians with an accent. This is the darkness of what? The darkness of despots. The darkness of people who don't recognize the innate dignity and freedom of other human beings, and they only see their own good. They see nothing else but their own good. We are filled with so much darkness here too. When God was being cursed left and right, we laughed at His jokes, and we never cared. When we were being walked on all over, when people were walking all over us and disrespecting our rights, we were silent. That's the darkness of despotism, and the darkness of what? Not ignorance, the darkness of passivity, when you don't care. Csikszentmihalyi, that famous Czech psychologist who migrated to Chicago, made a research about 40 years ago on dogs. They love to research on dogs. And he found out that when you put some piece of meat in a place where the dog can smell it and see it, but just in the right place when the dog cannot reach out for it, near enough for him to smell it, near enough for it to see it, but far enough for the dog never to reach it. For about a period of time, the dog would act with might and main to get the meat. But then after some time, he knows he cannot get it. So he just slumps down in desperation. And he coined the term, Csikszentmihalyi coined this term that is now popular and real in our midst. It's called learned helplessness. When you have learned that you cannot do anything about certain things, then what do? You just slump down in your chair and wait for the ayuda, and wait for your governor or your barangay captain or your congressman to do the right thing, but they only do the right thing prior to elections. And so what happens is this: learned helplessness puts us in a dark place. That dark place of helplessness, that dark place of passivity, that dark place when you have decided you cannot do anything about it, and therefore you do nothing about it. Darkness is our nemesis. It is our downfall. Thieves operate in the dark. And when we want to do something big, we need to have light. I grew up in rural Cavite, in the boonies of Cavite. It's just 65 kilometers away from Manila. But when we were growing up, there was this Cavite Electrification Development Authority. We had a small, very noisy generator in our little sleepy town. It started its engines at 6 p.m. and then everybody would run to the TV and put it on, and everybody would start ironing clothes. And so the voltage would plummet down just as soon as the generator was put on. And we had a variable AC transformer, and when the voltage would go down and the image in the cathode ray tube, CRT tube, in black and white TV that we had, would be reduced to about 2 or 3 inches. We would pump up the variac in order to get the right voltage, and everybody was doing it. Light was limited. What do you do in a place so dark where you have only a few light bulbs in your house? Not much. You sleep at 8 o'clock and wake up at 4 o'clock. You wake up with the dawn and wait longingly for the first streaks of dawn, the first rays of the sun. And then everybody wakes up as the sun shines together with the roosters and the crows, making noise and making such a row. The world is alive. New hope. Cocks and roosters are silent during the night, and it is always darkest just before dawn. Cattle rustlers are busy in the night. There is activity in the night, but not the type that you are familiar with. It is the activity associated with darkness. The deliverance in Egypt, however, took place in the night. And what with a difference? What a difference. They were vigilant. And this is now the lesson of the gospel. In the face of darkness, what is your response? You need to be vigilant. You need to be doing something in hope. You need to be waiting actively. You cannot subscribe to Csikszentmihalyi's learned helplessness. You've got to do something about it. And when we don't do something about it, then you have accepted the dark. And you have not accepted the call to the light. The Russians are so depoliticized. They believe hook, line, and sinker every propaganda being mouthed by Putin and his cohorts. And all the oppositions have been poisoned abroad, have been killed. Despotism reigns supreme. And we have quite a few who belong to that club. We have Xi Jinping, we have Hun Sen in Cambodia, we have, of course, Venezuela, we have North Korea, and their language has to do with darkness. It's all about nuclear warfare, nuclear weapons. We need to be vigilant. What kind? What kind of vigilance does the gospel speak about? It's that kind of vigilance when you are watching your master's business. Vigilance is not just waking up and putting on your Netflix and spending the night binge watching Crash Landing on You or anything about BTS. Vigilance doesn't mean just keeping your eyes open, but vigilance has to do with being busy about your master's concerns. It is about that servant who the master finds vigilant on his arrival. And therefore, what does the master do? Seeing a reliable and responsible servant, he would have the servants recline at table and proceed to wait on them. There is a reward waiting for those who are vigilant of the right kind. We are surrounded now by so many forms of darkness. The darkness of helplessness, nga ang tawag natin dyan. Nga. Wala tayong magagawa dyan. Talo na tayo. Laging panalo yung nasa posisyon. The darkness of passivity, let's not do anything about it. Let's not rock the boat. Huwag na kayong bumoto, walang mangyayari dyan. Passivity. The darkness of age and incapacity. The darkness of sickness. and disease. In the face of such darkness, there is a way out, but you need to be a responsible and a reliant servant who are vigilant in matters related to their master's concerns.